Hi everyone, Cynthia with Greenstyle here. Today I'm going to show you how to stitch up the Surfside Bikini top from Greenstyle Patterns. Follow along with me and I'll show you every step of the way. Enjoy! Here are the pieces you'll need to cut out to make your Surfside Bikini wrap top. You'll need 2 front pieces out of the main fabric and you'll want to cut mirror images. Also make sure to cut out those darts as they're marked on the pattern pieces. You may have a shorter piece right here if you are using the tie extension, and it will be about that much shorter. And also if you're making the halter top, you'll want the halter extension that goes up top here. I am making the Racerback, so I'm cutting on the Racerback line. You'll also need 2 front pieces cut mirror images out of the lining fabric as well. I'm using actual swimsuit lining fabric that I purchased from Joann Fabric. Cut out those darts just like you do on the main fabric. You may have the halter or tie extensions to cut out of the lining fabric. You'll notice that on my lining the tie extension is separate, and there I'm showing you I'm actually attaching a tie extension piece for the lining out of my main fabric. That way when I tie my Surfside in the back, it will look the same on the front and back of the tie, and you won't see any of the lining fabric visible when I tie my piece. For the back, you'll want 1 out of the main fabric and 1 out of the lining fabric. As you can see, this is the Racerback version. You'll have just the bottom piece if you're doing the halter version. The first step in constructing your bikini top is to attach any halter or tie extension pieces. Those will all be attached to the front piece. If you're doing the halter top, you'll want to attach them to the top of your front piece. I'm attaching the tie extension pieces here as they stick out from the side. You could have cut this all as one piece, and then you wouldn't have to attach it, or you could be attaching it to both the main and also to the lining. Once pinned, you'll be stitching these 2 short seams using a stretch stitch on your sewing machine, such as the lightning bolt stitch or your serger. Now that all of our extensions are attached to the main and the lining pieces, we'll go ahead and stitch up the darts. You'll start by taking your front piece and folding it at the dart so that the 2 short ends of the dart will line up on top of each other. And you're going to fold it so that the right sides are together. So all you're doing is taking those 2 sides of the triangle and just laying them on top of each other so that the raw edges match. We'll go ahead and pin that all up and then take it over to the machine. We'll do this with both the lining fabric and also the main fabric. Now we head over to the sewing machine, and we're going to use a straight stitch and use a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Start at the bottom of the dart, the bottom of the bra. You're going to do a few stitches forward and then back stitch to lock it in place, and do your straight stitch exactly 3/8 inches along that dart. You're going to come straight off of the fabric, and you're not going to back stitch, but you're going to cut, leaving a thread tail so that you can tie a few knots to lock the stitch in place, and then you'll trim the end of the threads off. This is like a French dart or a cutaway dart, and the really nice thing about it is that the bulk of the dart is all cut out so that you won't have so much bulk inside of your swimsuit. It'll be nice and streamlined. Now we'll attach the front and back pieces together at the side seam. Lay one of your front pieces down on your work table, and then take your back piece and lay it face down on top of that front piece so that right sides are together, lining up that side seam. Take your other front piece and lay it face up on the table, and then you'll just slide it underneath that back piece to line up those side seams and pin them together. If you're making yours reversible, you'll pin the lining fabric in the same exact way. If you want to check that you've pinned it correctly, open everything up so all the right sides are facing up, and it should look like this. The halter version is the same, it just doesn't have that racerback piece sticking up from the center. Now we'll stitch up those two side seams using a serger or stretch stitch and a 3/8 inch seam allowance. If you're making yours reversible, you will stitch your lining similarly, but you'll just stitch about 1.5 inches or 2 inches in from the bottom, and then another 1.5 inches or 2 inches from the top, and you'll just leave a small hole in the center of those two seams that I just created. So if you're looking at those two seams, just imagine that there is a 2-inch hole in the middle of those seams. That's what you'll create with your lining. And here's a quick look at what I'm talking about. This reversible Surfside is completed except for closing up that hole. If you're not doing reversible, you'll do what I'm doing here. We're just going to finish all of the edges of those seams on the lining pieces by folding over the fabric 3/8 of an inch. So what I've done is I've drawn a line 6/8 of an inch on each of those seams on the lining, and when I fold the edge up to that line, I'll have a 3/8 inch fold. I've turned the knife off on my serger, and then I'm just running those edges through the serger. And so I'm going to have a nice folded edge with a serger stitch holding it in place. You can use a stretch stitch on your sewing machine to do this same exact step. And what we'll do is repeat that on the side seam, two side seams on the back piece, and then one side seam on each of the front pieces. Make sure that you fold the fabric toward the wrong side of your lining piece. And you'll know it's the wrong side because it's the side that has the seam of the dart and the seam of your tie extensions. To attach the main piece to the lining, you'll first lay your main piece on the table with right sides up, and you'll see where it's attached at the side seams. If you are doing the reversible, your lining will all be in one piece, and you can just lay the entire lining piece with right sides down onto your main piece. If you're not doing reversible, you'll do as I am doing, and you're going to lay your lining pieces separately onto your main. So make sure that it's right sides down, and you can tell because the finished edge on those side seams is going to be facing down, and then you can see the edge of the fold facing upward. So we'll line that all up and get it pinned. Notice all the pins that I have laying on my table. Once the back piece is pinned, you can bring over the front pieces one at a time, and again, right sides down so that right sides are facing on your main and lining, and line up that side seam right on the edge. Those should just butt up right against each other and get it carefully pinned. And then we'll do the exact same with the other front piece. Line up that side seam and butt up those lining side seam pieces very perfectly and close together using lots of pins, and then pin the whole rest of the way. And once you've made it through your entire collection of pins and clips, you'll want to stitch these all up over at your machine. I'll be using my serger today, but you can also use a stretch stitch on your sewing machine. So basically you are going to stitch up along the entire bottom edge. Stitch the slanted edge of the end of your tie as its own separate stitch. And now you'll begin stitching around the top of the piece. So you'll start at the edge right at the end of that tie. And if you're doing the Racerback version, you're going to go all the way up to the top of the front piece, and you're going to leave that top open. If you're doing the Racerback version, you're going to have 4 skinny tops. You'll leave those all open. If you are doing the halter version, you're going to have 2 skinny tops that will be slanted, and you are going to stitch those closed with their own separate stitches, just like we did the side tie a moment ago. And again, I'm showing you this is the top of the Racerback, and you'll leave those skinny top edges open. And right here, I'm just showing you where you are in case you're trying to follow along. That's the dart. So we are just at the top of the second front piece and coming to the end of the tie extension. And again, I'll do a separate stitch for that slanted edge. Now we need to start stitching elastic, and that's going to give your swimsuit some support and stability so it stays nice and snug on your body instead of becoming loose. We're going to go into the side straps just until about where the width evens out. See how it's wide at the cups and then it becomes about the same width? That's about how far we're going to go. If your swimsuit has a main side and a lining side, then you'll be sure to attach the elastic to the main side of the fabric. You're going to use elastic that is 3/8 inches wide for the bottom of your swimsuit. And you're going to use a stretch stitch on your sewing machine. I like to use a zigzag stitch. I have it at 2.5 width and 2.5 length. So like I said, we'll start on the strap just about where the width evens out from being wide on the cup, and you don't want the elastic to be up in the bra. You want it to be on the seam, and you want it to stick out under the seam. That way when you turn it inside out, the elastic will be sticking out into the bra instead of pushing your fabric down. So just carefully line it up and stitch all the way across the bottom until you get to the other strap. You'll want to stretch the elastic very slightly as you attach it, just not a lot. You don't want the swimsuit to be buckling and folding after you attach the elastic. Now we'll begin attaching elastic to the upper part of the bra. It's going to go part way up the straps. You'll want to stop on the Racerback version 3/8 of an inch from the top edges. And this is going to be 1/4 inch elastic. You'll attach it in the same manner, but it just won't hang off the edge of the bra quite as much as the 3/8 inch elastic. You're still pulling slightly and you're still making sure to stay within that seam allowance. End the elastic at the same point of the side straps that you ended the bottom elastic, and I'll show you what that looks like. Repeat all along all of the top edges. If you are doing the halter top version, you are going to stitch up as far as the seam with the halter extension. And don't forget the tiny top bit of that racerback. Now you can turn the whole thing right side out. To connect the front and back straps for the Racerback version, you'll turn the whole thing with the lining side face up so that you can access those openings that you left on the lining. You'll reach in and grab the front strap and pull it through the opening of the lining. And what you want to do is just to make sure that the lining stays facing up so your strap does not twist inside of the lining there. Do you see how the little bit of my lining of my strap is sticking out and the lining is facing up? Now you'll take that back Racerback and just bend it to the side, almost like a tree swaying in the breeze or a person bending down at the side. So bend that back piece over and put one of the straps in through that opening that you made with your front strap, and you're going to pull it all the way through. I like to use a safety pin to help me in this step. And again, you just want to make sure that that strap stays straight and flat and doesn't twist inside of itself. And once you've gotten it through, you're going to stitch right across the top there. Now, I recommend using a basting stitch because I'm 5'3" and I'm short on top, so I always need to adjust the length of those straps. And what I recommend to do is baste it on, and then once you've got both of them basted on, try it on to make sure it's the right length. If you need to take out any length, you can take out the basting stitch and pull the strap through further, or stitch up higher. And then once you have just how you want it, you'll use a permanent stitch. You can use a straight stitch or a stretch stitch to permanently attach them. Now repeat for the other side of the racerback. Once you're satisfied with your straps and you permanently stitch them, if you're doing the reversible, you will hand stitch those side seams closed. If you are not, you can just leave them finished and open. It's a nice little opening to add bra pads if you want to, and then you are done. Enjoy your new Surfside Bikini top.